Okay. Have you ever woken up from a bad dream and just couldn't let it go, and you were in a bad mood the rest of the day? What about entertained a negative thought and found that you had suddenly become grouchy? I know I've experienced these things quite a bit, and for reasons I'm sure a psychiatrist would have a field day with, thinking positively for me has always been a huge struggle. I know being positive is much better for me, but it doesn't necessarily make it easy. People usually realize that being positive helps them have a better day or be a better person. But I wonder how much people truly believe that their thoughts can affect so much more than having a good or a bad day. Michael Shire and Charles Carver, two former colleagues, both with a master's degree in psychology, wrote the seminal study, Optimism, Coping, and Health, Assessment and Implications of Generalized Outcome Expectancies, in 1985 to study the psychological and physiological effects of a positive mindset. This study has now been cited in over 3,100 other published works. Many years later, the two were interviewed about their research. When asked about how their research came about, Shire said, quote, "The idea was, and still is, that when people encounter difficulties doing what it is they intend to do, some sort of mental calculation takes place that results in the generalization of an outcome expectancy, the person's subjective assessment of the likelihood that he or she will succeed," end quote. For those of us that speak English, what he's saying is that when we try to do or accomplish something, our own assessment of whether or not we'll succeed and to what level is what plays the biggest role in accomplishment. So if you want to do something and to do it well, particularly something difficult, having a positive self-outlook is a must. Later in the interview, Shire continued with an explanation on his and Carver's findings and said, "Optimism is clearly associated with better psychological health, as seen through lower levels of depressed moods, anxiety, general distress when facing difficult life circumstances, including situations involving recovery from illness and disease." It seems like today there are so many things working against us to drag us into depression, distress, or anxiety. But positive thinking can be a very simple tool to help avoid these things that everyone is always seeking the cure to. Along with helping with things like anxiety and depression, a positive mindset can help safeguard us from the evil influences of the world. We've all been taught to always have a prayer in our hearts, which means having a prayer in our minds. In October of 1979, in a general conference session, Elder Bernard B. Brockband said, quote, "Prayer to God will give you power to conquer and overcome the evil powers and influence of Satan and this world." End quote. Negative thoughts tend to drive the spirit away, so it can be hard to have a prayer in your heart when you're having negative thoughts in your head. By keeping those kinds of feelings out of your mind and allowing a prayer in instead, you're giving yourself the power to conquer evil. And this talk was given 36 years ago. Imagine how much more evil has come into the world since then that we need to safeguard against. Unfortunately, oftentimes being optimistic is easier said than done. At least for me, it usually takes a very conscious effort to banish all the negativity that finds its way into my head throughout the day. But one thing I've learned from trying to improve my thinking habits is that it doesn't happen automatically, and it can sometimes become overwhelming to try. In his book, The Power of Positive Thinking, Norman Vincent Peale said, quote, "Believe in yourself, have faith in your abilities. Without a humble but reasonable confidence in your own powers, you cannot be successful or happy. But with sound self-confidence, you can succeed. A sense of inferiority and inadequacy interferes with the attainment of your hopes, but self-confidence leads to self-realization and successful achievement," end quote. So it's kind of a vicious cycle. You have to have confidence in your ability to think optimistically, but you have to think positively about yourself to be able to have that confidence. In his talk, The Power of Self-Mastery, President James E. Faust said, quote, Self-mastery requires self-determination and strength of character. It enhances our own gifts and talents in a remarkable way. Self-mastery cannot be bought by money or fame. It is the ultimate test of our character. Mastering your own thoughts and avoiding negativity, end quote. Mastering our thoughts and avoiding negativity can be difficult and take a lot of time, effort, and determination. But then again, don't most good things in life? Positive thoughts take careful nurturing and care. They're easy to squash or neglect, and what fills up the space that is left is never a better option. To conclude, I'd like to share one last quote with you by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Sow a thought and you reap an action. Sow an act and you reap a habit. Sow a habit and you reap a character. Sow a character and you reap a destiny. Optimistic thoughts have so much more power than just determining your mood for the day. They determine who you will become. Most of us strive to be good people, and that truly starts with your thoughts. Positive thoughts have the power to reap a positive destiny. Okay. Can I stop the broadcast and start it again?
If you know, I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Okay. Do you want me to leave it for you, or do you want to just record your own later?
I don't know. You can just leave it, I guess.
Okay, sounds good.
Or you can stop it. I mean, just stop it.